Welcome to Chronicles of Lester. In this episode, I am on vacation and sharing some of the ways that I go about practicing while on vacation with all of you. Hey, so I'm coming to you from BYU's orchestra room where I snuck in to get a decent practice session in because you know how it goes. So my first tip for practicing on vacation would be to find a space that's large and that you can practice in at least once, because I know practicing in a confined space for a long period of time can get kind of frustrating. So if you have a chance to play in a room like this where the sound is great, it feels good to play in, then definitely take that opportunity. So most of the time on vacation, I don't have moments like this where I can sneak into a giant room and have it to myself for like 2 hours. So typically I'll lock myself in a small room, usually the room I'm sleeping in, and I'll just do a good warm-up and some fundamentals training, and that is my second tip. If you're needing a quick practice because you're spending time with your family, then just do a quick warm-up, make sure everything's still feeling good, and leave it there for the day. All right, here's my third tip for you guys. If there's a lull or you're in the car and you can't practice, then take your earbuds, which I stupidly forgot. Grab your music, boop, 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 and just listen and look at your music, and it's just as productive as playing your instrument. So this, if you've never heard of it, it's called a silent brass mute. And it's designed, it has a bunch of little electronic things that plug into it so that you can have your headphones on, and when it's in your horn, it's meant to make it sound like you're in a concert hall, but no one else can hear you playing because you have a mute in your horn. So I'll show you kind of the difference between how the horn sounds without it and with it, and what kind of a difference it makes. Alright. Now with the mute, get it in there. So it dramatically reduces the sound. I always take it with me to hotel rooms and everything when I'm doing auditions, and it really helps me get a good warm-up in without disturbing anyone around you. So tip number 4, if you play a brass instrument, I'm sorry, woodwinds and strings, I don't think there are silent brass mute type things for you, but if you know of something that is, please let us know. But yeah, so tip number 4, get a practice mute. Because if you're nervous about playing where people can hear you or you might disturb people, then it can help you really get good practice time in confidently.
Yep.
So our theme for this episode is kind of talking about practicing while on vacation, because Jake and I have been all over the place the last week and a half, 2 weeks, and so I've just kind of been talking about ways that I try to stay in shape. So how do you go about staying in shape, prioritizing your time, all that kind of stuff?
It's a great question. When you're traveling on vacation, first of all, you just have to take the horn. It depends on what your priorities are. If you want to be a professional horn player, you have to take the horn.
Yeah.
I have stopped at rest stops and practiced many times, and I've had some strange experiences. One time in Illinois, I was stopped at a rest stop. I was playing Mozart concertos, and a man came up to me. This is when I was in the Utah Symphony.
Mm-hmm.
He came up to me and he said, I just couldn't obviously notice. I noticed that you were playing the horn. I used to play horn in the Utah Symphony. I said, well, that's very odd because I do now. So did you think?
It's like in Illinois, so.
Yeah. I always find the place in an airport that is as far away from anybody that's, I'm going to bother, and I try to play. When I go to my relatives' houses, I take the horn. It drives them nuts. I go up and find the bedroom as far from live human beings as I can, and I practice every single day. Even the travel days, it's really hard to get there, to be at your relative's house, and everybody's talking, and you say, I have to go practice. Mm-hmm. And when you're in a hotel, one thing that is really useful, I don't have my horn with me, but I always take my mute with me. And I've discovered that in a hotel, if you put the mute in and then put a pillow over that, you can practice in any hotel room, and it's not as loud as the television. No one can hear you.
Interesting.
And because the mute's in, it still sounds like a horn. It still responds well. If you try putting a pillow over just the bell,
Mm-hmm.
it won't work.
Yeah, I've tried that, and it like drops the pitch.
It
makes feel
ruins
weird.
everything. It's all fluffy. But if you put the mute in, now if you put the mute in without the pillow, it's too loud for the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually quite loud. But if you put the pillow over it, then you can play, and it can't be heard, and you can actually play pretty successfully that way. And I do it all the time when we're doing that. If I camp, I take the horn with me, and I find the most beautiful spot in the campground. And again, I try to be as far away from
Yeah.
other folks as I can. But the response has always been, "That's so cool." More people come up and say, "Wow, that's the neatest thing. Could you play?" And then they want me to play some pop tune. No, but I could play Mozart.
Yeah.
More people seem kind of enchanted by it
Mm-hmm.
than annoyed by it. Of course,
Yeah.
I don't do it late at night, and I don't do it too early in the morning
Mhm.
either.
Yeah, because I know that's always the concern in like hotels and everything is that people don't want to practice because they're worried that other people are going to be like, turn it off.
And other people will, but the
Mhm.
mute and the pillow, no one will ever hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that I usually have the television on just to keep. You're going to have a little distraction problem when you're on vacation. You want to feel it like you're on vacation. What I do is I turn the TV on, and I'm just mostly playing things that I already know, and I'm just watching something mindless. I hate to say it, but I watch an awful lot of HGTV, home garden television,
Yes.
because there's no plot. It doesn't matter what they say.
It's always going to work out in the end.
That's probably why we're doing this Reno, because I watch it all the time. But yeah, so an awful lot of my practice time, especially warm-up time, when I have music that I need to learn, I don't do that. But when I'm warming up, I'm usually watching television.
Yeah, I do that sometimes too.
Yeah.
No shame. Yeah, the technology for practice mutes too has really come a long way. Like,
Yeah, if you
Silent
want,
brass.
there's silent brass.
Mhm.
Silent brass is fine. I just found that pillow and a mute works just as well, and it's way cheaper.
yeah, you don't have to pay for it. Like a straight mute, right? With that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
Mhm.
just a pillow. Wow,
yeah, it works really well.
good to know.
Yeah, I should dim them, but again, my horn's upstairs.
Yeah,
So.
that's okay. And then, so do you have any advice for young musicians like my age who are trying to build a career? What they
Yeah,
can do?
yeah, I do. Don't be afraid. There's a tremendous amount of fear around you. A lot of people will tell you not to do it because you need something to fall back on. If you try to go into performance or something, they'll tell you that it's too risky. There's always room at the top.
Mm-hmm.
When you set your sights on what it is you want to do, you just attack it until it happens. I have a good friend here in the Utah Symphony who's taken at least 50 auditions. And many of the professionals that have major positions talk about the fact that it took them a long time to win that wonderful job.
Mm-hmm.
My goal was to win a college job, and I basically won the second one I tried for, and then I've never lost one since. So for me, it was a little bit different. I won't say easier. A lot of people try to get college jobs and they can't do it. I put together a really good, well, it was a tape at the time, and I had played a lot of chamber music in college, played in a lot of quintets, which is a part of really good college jobs. Usually you'll play in a quintet, either
Yeah.
woodwind or brass. I played a lot of solos, and I have the gift of gab, so I was able to handle the interviews, I
Oh,
suppose.
good.
So I was able to get those jobs successfully without doing too many of those interviews.
Yeah,
But you don't be afraid. Everybody's going to try to scare you away.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, how much do you want it? If you want it and you're talented, and it should happen.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's Peter Corral. One of his things he told me when I did a lesson with him was, you have to be averse to the risk and just go for it, because there's no harm in giving it your best shot. So.
Well, if you don't give it your best shot, then you'll always say, well, I probably could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are other things that you can do that are wonderful. Frankly, for a performance major, I think you pretty much have to decide this is all I want.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something else to fall back on, you probably will. Because it's very difficult to compete on the level that people are actually winning jobs in America.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult. But there's room for at the top. If you're well prepared and you're talented and you have enough stick-to-itiveness, there is room.
Yeah, you just gotta keep going. It's just kind of the hardest part sometimes, but
You have to have courage.
yes. All right, it's time for the work of the week. This one is John Williams' Cowboys Overture. You'll probably recognize it as soon as you hear it. It starts with a huge horn part, and I love this piece. I took it on tour with the BYU Chamber Orchestra to the Philippines and played it a bunch. It totally killed my embouchure, and yeah. It's my husband's favorite piece to listen to when we're on vacation or driving through the countryside. So it kind of represents this week's episode of being on vacation. So we'll play out with that. Thanks for watching this week's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have a piece that you think should be a work of the week at some point, please leave it in the comments on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page. Please comment how you go about practicing on vacation. I know I don't know a ton about woodwinds and strings, so if any of you have tips for any viewers who may not play brass, please leave them in the comments. Our next episode is not going to include an interview because my husband and I are going to be moving to Evanston, where I'm going to go to Northwestern. So the next episode is going to be following our move across the country. So make sure you stay tuned for that episode because it's definitely going to be a fun one. This is how my vacation typically looks, watching Jake take photos, but I also get to take in views like this, so I would say that is well worth the wait.